We're all familiar with the Mafia's traditional rackets: gambling, drugs, extortion, and its control over labor unions, construction companies, and garbage haulers. But who would have believed that the Mafia might become involved in, of all things, homeless shelters? Well, Michael Cherkasky, a former New York City prosecutor, would.
This is a high cash volume business. It's not for their good heart and that they care about the homeless. It is because of an interest in making money, and making money fast in any way they can.
Are you telling me that running a homeless shelter, collecting state, local, and federal money is as profitable as loan sharking or gambling or prostitution?
I'm saying it can be.
It can be if you're getting $100 a night for 95 rooms and the rooms are almost always full, which is what an ostensibly not-for-profit homeless shelter by the name of Angels by the Sea had been collecting until we began nosing around a few months ago.
They call it Angels by the Sea, but these folks are like no angels I've ever seen. It is like no charity, no not-for-profit that I've ever experienced in my life.
George McDonald runs a charity that helps the homeless, and he's served on 2 government commissions that have dealt with homeless issues. You've looked at their tax returns, you've looked at the statements they filed with the city. How do their costs and expenses stack up with other not-for-profit shelters in the city?
Well, any legitimate law enforcement authority that looks at this will determine in 5 minutes that they are not a legitimate not-for-profit.
And that would seem to be right on the money. Since the old Bayview Hotel became a homeless shelter in 1990 and changed the name on the front of the building to Angels by the Sea, the government has been paying $3,000 a month for each of the 95 rooms, half of it with your federal tax dollars from Washington. That's more revenue per room than this Sheraton in Key Largo, Florida takes in. And this middle-class neighborhood on the outskirts of Brooklyn called Sheepshead Bay is hardly Key Largo. Known for its Italian restaurants, its fishing fleet, and New York's only legal casino, a gambling boat that sails twice a day, it's hardly an ideal location for a high-occupancy hotel. So what do you do if you own a hotel here and want to turn a profit? Well, if you turn it into a homeless shelter, the city of New York will keep it full. And that's exactly what seems to have happened here. Since 1990, federal, state, and local governments have shelled out enough money to pay off the mortgage on this hotel several times over. More than $20 million. And all of that, on paper anyway, has gone to the charitable organization called Angels by the Sea. So who is Angels by the Sea, and what has happened to all that money? Well, on paper anyway, the president is Judy Rossino, seen here leaving the homeless shelter in her Lincoln Town car. According to tax returns, she pays herself a salary of $123,000 a year. That's about twice the going rate for someone running a homeless shelter, but peanuts when it comes to this operation. Most of the $20 million in public money, 75% of it in fact, is gone for rent and maintenance of this rather modest building. At other not-for-profit shelters we looked at, most of the money goes for programs to help the homeless residents. About $10 million of that money is apparently gone in rent to a company owned by this man, smoking the cigar, Anthony Zito, a convicted felon who has not only done time for extortion and loan sharking, but has also been convicted of bribing a city official. Zito's company not only owns the building, Judy Rossino, the president of Angels by the Sea, is his former employee, and her charity uses Zito's lawyer and Zito's accountant. So you think that Zito and Angels by the Sea are essentially the same thing?
You know, I mean, he probably still goes there every day.
He does?
Oh, well, there you go. Well, what does he do there then, if he's not involved in it?
He's the landlord.
Oh.
Looking over the building, I guess.
Well, then he gets all the money. He's the landlord, and he gets all the money. So it's a ruse. It's a scam. It's a joke. And it's cruel.
Do you know if Mr. Zito has any partners?
I'm sure that he has partners. I don't know them personally.
Do you know who they are?
Well, you know, there's several prominent families here in New York City that, you know, no.
You're saying this is a family business?
Oh, it definitely is a family business.
Mr. McDonald is alluding to the Lucchese family, one of New York's most vicious organized crime families. In federal court in 1992, The bookkeeper for the Lucchese family testified that Anthony Zito was partners in the hotel with this man, the man behind the curtain.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. My name is Anthony Casso. Early in my life, I was given the nickname of Gas Pipe.
Last year, Mr. Casso, who has reportedly been involved in 36 murders, appeared before a Senate committee investigating organized crime. He went into protective custody after his arrest back in 1993.
At that time, I was the underboss of the Lucchese organized crime family.
According to the testimony of the Lucchese bookkeeper, the third partner in the operation was Vic Amuso, the head of the Lucchese crime family. But when we wanted to see what homeless families and the taxpayers are getting for their $3,000 a month, it wasn't the Lucchese crime family that said we couldn't bring our cameras into the shelter. It was the New York City Department of Homeless Services. It took us several weeks, but we finally got Stephen Banks, a lawyer with the Legal Aid Society, to take us in to visit one of his homeless clients with a court order. We've been trying to get into this place for months, and they said it's impossible. How come we can go in with you?
Well, the problem is the city wants to keep you out, but the residents of this facility have the right to receive visitors in the room. I mean, it's not a prison, although the city would like people not to know what's going on in there. What's going on in there that New York City would like people not to know is that for $3,000 you could rent a luxury apartment in the best part of Manhattan. Okay. This is what you get at Angels by the Sea, at least in the rooms we were allowed to take pictures in. Karen Granville, one of Stephen Banks's homeless clients, has been living in this small room at Angels by the Sea with her 2 children for the last 9 months at a cost to the taxpayer of $27,000. That includes a color TV, no cable, bunk beds for her kids, and private bath and limited cooking facilities. Not even she thinks it's worth that much money. How do you like it here?
It's nice, it's comfortable. I mean, I wouldn't make it home, but it's comfortable.
Is this worth $3,000 a month?
No.
And at most homeless shelters, that $3,000 is supposed to cover a lot more than just rent. Mary Brosnahan, the executive director of the Coalition for the Homeless, one of the nation's leading policy groups on homeless issues, says most nonprofit shelters also pay the salaries of full-time social workers who provide all sorts of services.
They have private counseling sessions, very often job readiness, job training components, computer classes, recreational facilities for the children, playgrounds.
The $3,000 figure was never intended just to be for rent and maintenance.
No, absolutely not.
No one was supposed to make a profit.
Oh, no, no. All this money was supposed to be directed towards these very needy families that were in crisis.
Brosnahan says most not-for-profit homeless shelters in New York spend about 35% of their budgets on rent and maintenance, not 75% like Angels by the Sea, which critics say provides minimal social services. Somebody's making money off of it.
If there's such a gross misproportion of money going to rent and maintenance versus actually taking care of the homeless people in these facilities, then that tells me that something's gone awry.
We wanted to talk to Judy Rossino, the president of Angels by the Sea, about all of this, but she declined on the advice of her attorney. We did manage to catch up with Anthony Zito one afternoon outside the homeless shelter. What is your connection with Angels by the Sea?
I'm just a landlord.
Really?
Yeah. They pay me the rent. They do a good operation, though.
What kind of rent do you get?
What kind of rent do I get?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I got to check my account.
But it's a pretty good deal?
Yeah, I do okay. You know, I got a mortgage on a place with the bank. I pay the bank, and leaves me a few dollars.
But there's no secret owners.
I used to like you till now.
Look, I've got to ask these questions. I'm doing my job, and everybody... Mr. Zito told us he is performing a public service, that he donates these 3 trailers on his property to community groups who use them for free. He says he's tried to be generous to a community that's been very generous to him. He says most communities wouldn't even take the homeless. No one has ever accused him of being a made member of the Mafia, only a business associate. And Mr. Zito acknowledged he knew Vic Amuso and Anthony Gaspipe Casso from the neighborhood, but he said they've never been his partners. And he seemed to have forgotten that he once loaned Gaspipe $200,000. A couple of people have just raised some questions. one of them, you know, let's just say, look, this is not really a
Do I need my lawyer
non-profit
here?
organization.
Need my attorney here?
This is really not a non-profit organization. You know, Mr. Zito's collecting a huge amount of money in rent. There are all sorts of people on the payroll. A lot of people are making a lot of money, including yourself. And that it's more than just
now you're making a statement there, Mr. Crook. You say a lot of money. I make maybe $300,000 a year. I make. Before taxes. After taxes, what am I left with? This is America. I'm not entitled to that. Look how I'm dressed. I'm not in a suit and a tie.
There are some people that say, look, this operation is organized crime.
Absolutely not. They've been saying that for 13 years. I'd be close if it was organized crime. Absolutely not.
George McDonald says for 10 of those 13 years, he's been trying to get the city to take a closer look at Anthony Zito, ever since Mr. Zito got caught bribing a city inspector.
What have you done? Testified before the city council, brought it to the attention of the three administrations.
And what happened when you did it?
You know, nothing. Obviously, nothing.
The New York City Department of Homeless Services and Mayor Rudolph Giuliani refused to give us an interview.
Mayor Giuliani,
so we decided to go to one of the mayor's news conferences and ask him why the government was paying $3,000 a month to house homeless families at Angels by the Sea.
The reason for that is not a lot of places will house homeless people, so the rate is driven up. We have continued to try to bring the rate down. We're trying to do that, but if you did it too fast, you'd find out that you'd had more homeless people, because no one would take homeless people for $40 a day or $50 a day. If you went to the Waldorf Astoria and said, we would like to put homeless people here, they wouldn't take homeless people. So otherwise,
Mayor Giuliani said his Department of Investigation looked into the organized crime allegations several years ago, but was unable to substantiate them, at least to the point where the city could stop doing business with Angels by the Sea without risking a lawsuit. But Mark Green, New York City's public advocate, whose job it is to investigate city government operations, including homeless shelters, thinks it's time the mayor's office took another look.
Based on our investigation, it appears that Angels by the Sea is taking millions of dollars in taxpayer funds and siphoning off a substantial percentage to people who are partners of or associated with organized crime.
It's possible that Mark Green and the mayor are both right, that what we have here is a bunch of questionable characters making a bunch of money because of failed policy and government ineptitude. Mary Brosnahan says the government is throwing way too much money at temporary shelter for the homeless when it should be building more low-income housing.
I think that this entire system has gotten so twisted and so perverted and so flush with this unbelievable amount of money that I think the daily mantra at City Hall is simply, let's not rock the boat.
Let's pay them $3,000 a month if they're doing a good job and staying out of the headlines.
Exactly. That's sadly, that is the only thing that sparks real change with this administration, is exposés like this and the public outcry which follows.
After Steve Kroft's interview with New York's Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, and after our story had been completed, the mayor, late last Friday, ordered the city not to send any more homeless families to Angels by the Sea until there had been a new investigation into its alleged ties to organized crime.